Alright, so hey guys, welcome to my 10 minutes speaking for today. Let's do it. Let's say you're free of public speaking, right? So you're about to go down on stage and you feel anxiety. The, the usual default state of someone who doesn't want to have that experience, they just want to be at least want to you don't have to worry about that experience. I mean, the anxiety is kindled just by mere thought of what you do. Then once you feel the butterflies, you are with them, right? You contract, your mind contracts around it. Your conversation with yourself is an unhappy one. It's like, damn, right, this person just can lie. Can see people do this all the time. That relaxed, I'm happy. When am I? And you're talking to yourself, you're not noticing because your thoughts just come up behind you as fast as they can. And they seem to be you, right? To identify with each thought that emerges in consciousness. And most people live their lives are taught is not authoritative. Recently, a rule book for how to operate a human mind, right? There's no place in normal education where we are. As even indicated, there's an alternative here, and so we get like of stumble out into our adulthood, more or less assuming that we always have the mind we have, and really there's the only thing we can do to really operate our framework is to just add new content. We can read books, we can develop interest, but there's nothing at the sort of root level of our emotional and cognitive law that can change. If you feel anxiety, there's actually a place on which you can just feel it, right? And be actually indifferent into it or anything else. You could be feeling, I mean, just talking today even the blessing sensation refers to not that anxiety, it isn't even that a blessing is so close excitement as a physiology that really different between excitement and excitement, more or less just different. This story you tell yourself, if you felt these tingles, this slightly authorized response right before you're about to go on roller coaster. That's part of why you're going on this roller coaster. You like the experience, right? The fact that you feel that way when you're about to have an interview, record about to go walk on stage. That's intolerable, right? So just dropping back and realizing the power of framing is taking this skill that is a fairly exotic one, but many people are learning it. This result. Most of what people care about can be thought of as a skill. I mean, well-being is a skill, not suffering unnecessary is a skill. Noticing your emotional life, regulating negative emotion is a skill. The moment you begin practicing mindfulness with just learning to pay close attention to the nature of your experience, adding anything to your experience, you're just noticing what it's like to be you moment to moment. But in a way that it is not reactive, you're gonna cross me in this present or brushing up in the way you're just that is the story of telling yourself a story you're thinking, and you can either become more and more mindful of what interrupt that more and more. You can reframe this continually into yourself a better story, but you can actually just engineer. You can change the code that you are running moment to moment. This sort of use of negative imagination where you think of all of the bad things that happen to you, right? Just stuck in traffic, driving to the job that you don't like, and you're frustrated. You can think of all the things that could happen to you, right? That haven't. And if any one of them happened to you, you would consider your prayers answered if you could just be returned to this moment. And you could be a guy who today is going to find out you've got 2 months left, right? And you have to then the next 2 months is spent just unwinding your worldly affairs, right? That guy, right? It hasn't happened to you yet. That's just more thinking. But it can have a profound effect. You can reframe your spirit in a way that doesn't actually change anything material about your circumstance. And you can let the light in, and there are many techniques like that are just a matter of invoking useful concepts skillfully. Speech that you're in an airplane and you begin to bounce. And even those a person or especially afraid to fly can feel anxious in insignificant turbulence. Now, why do we feel anxious? Where we have some thought that turbulence might be dangerous, right? That it makes us more likely the plane will crash. And of course, surely, significant turbulence can cause the plane to crash. This we know from the statistics of plane crashes is a very, very rare thing. So now, unless you're in that rare and horrible experience of being actually thrown around the cabin so as to get injured, it's feels likely that he bouncing is not physically painful, right? You're not being harmed. This uh, sensation in the context you could shift yourself to even more violent bouncing and not be worried about it at all. You might go on some ground and the movement back which exerts greater force on your bodily, and you do it because you're seeking an experience out. And an empathy is totally unwelcome to you. You just take the raw sensations that not your problem. It's what they pretend. It's an interpretation of them that worries you. There are at least two levels that in which you can deal with this. First is to think conceptually about the nature of a problem and about what you fear. It is rational to worry that your plane will crash. If you're experiencing turbulence, no, it isn't. The likelihood of dying in a plane crash is minuscule. Over the course of your journey, you should begin to worry as you leave the airport and get in Uber or taxi or drive yourself home. You're in your own car, so if you understand that, if you understand that every moment in the plane is in fact safer than every moment you spend on the ground, certainly safer than when you're working as a pedestrian seated on your smartphone and stepping into the cross court. That's when you're in the right to church. Those are the moments where the sweat should begin beating off on your forehead. So when you're in the plane and it's begun to bounce, it is in fact unreasonable to worry that what the bouncing means, much of anything. If we understand that might actually have an effect and you become willing to just experience the raw sensations of turbulence, then you can cease to interpret the experience as a sign of actual danger. At other level, you can address this, and they are totally compatible moves. I recommend both of them is to become mindful of the feeling of anxiety itself. What is it? And what does it mean? Well, it's just sensation, it's just a pattern of energy in your body. And it actually doesn't mean anything. At the level of raw sensation, you may have thoughts about it. And very likely much of your thinking in that moment is purposed toward just figuring out how not to feel it, okay? Or not to let it work, get worse. We step out of your thoughts and just become willing to feel the raw sensation of anxiety. Actually, just surrender your resistance to it. Just feel it as energy. It can lose its meaning. It can become very difficult to distinguish from what another framing would be a positive experience like excitement. How do you know the difference between being anxious about something that's about to happen and being excited? For the most part, it is thoughts that you're thinking when you're feeling that arousal. It's a cognitive, conceptual overlay on top of this raw feeling. You can constantly reframe things, or you can step out of it altogether and just feel the raw energy of the experience. We do that. Anxiety can be like any other experience that has no meaning for you as a person. Really doesn't say anything about you. So let's say you have a rash on your elbow and it's itching. Okay, that doesn't say anything deep about you as a person. That has no physiological indications. It might be unpleasant, it might be extraordinary unpleasant, but doesn't reach into your sense of who you are. The deepest way to respond to anxiety. And again, I'm not saying that there is no case in which drugs are valuable or even necessary. They may very well be, but for anxiety, it is more ordinary range. The deep way to respond is to become willing to feel it, to cease to interpret it as important and to function in the midst of it. And then if you pass anxiety rises and falls like any other emotion and you're not continually thinking the thoughts that make you anxious, it is really can't stay around very long. And this is true of other unpleasant emotions like anger and sadness, and they are continually restricted by our thoughts. And we are spending most of our time thinking without knowing what we are thinking. So mindfulness in particular is a very good antidote to this problem. But trick is you can't apply it as an antidote. You can't be mindful of anxiety so that it will go away. Become willing to feel it, and to let it burn bright in you and discover that it doesn't matter. It simply comes, it goes, and you can functional. All right, so that's it. This 10 minutes speaking. Let's move to the 30 minutes speaking. Okay, so bye guys, and see you in the 30 minutes speaking.